Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to AlertMedia's webinar on how to accelerate incident response through automation. We have a ton of information and insights to share with you today that we're really excited about. But before we get started, I do have some housekeeping to go over really quickly. First of all, today's webinar is being recorded, and you will all receive this recording in your inbox within about a week or so you can be on the lookout for that. We will have a few minutes for questions and answers at the end of the presentation, so you can go ahead and use the Q&A box to submit those at any time. And also, they don't have to be traditional questions. If you have a comment, an insight, just something to share that's relevant to the conversation, you're welcome to post that at any time. And then finally, stay tuned for a few polls that we'll have throughout the presentation. We'd really love your participation in those, as it just gives us a little more context on who all of you are and what you're here looking for today. So with all of that said, I would love to introduce you to today's speakers. First, we have Grant Hayes with us today. He is a highly accomplished and respected global safety and security consultant with more than 20 years of experience identifying and solving both physical security and safety challenges globally. Grant's portfolio includes serving and protecting the 43rd President of the United States and his family, plus former presidents, world leaders, and executives. Currently, he is the Chief Operating Officer at RBO Technologies and co-owner of Childers, Hayes, and Richards, which is an organization that connects leaders with meaningful resources to help maximize their security investments. So Grant, thank you so much for being here. We're excited.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'd also like to introduce Peter Steinfeld. He's the Senior Vice President of Safety Solutions at AlertMedia and also the host of the Employee Safety Podcast. So he interviews safety, security, business continuity, and disaster recovery experts. He also has more than 20 years of experience in the space, advising organizations of all sizes and industries on employee safety and emergency communications matters. Peter is extremely passionate about helping organizations protect their most valuable assets, their people. Peter, great to have you here.
Excellent to be here. And I think we've got some great material and appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to us as we go through it.
Absolutely. Well, I want to just quickly touch on today's agenda, just so we all know what to expect over the next 45, 50 minutes. So first, we're going to talk about the current trends that are adding complexity to organizational incident response. We're going to talk about some challenges of managing today's global threats. There's certainly a lot of them. We're going to talk about the importance of human-vetted threat detection. And then, of course, how to use automation to improve incident response, along with some examples of that. So as I mentioned, we're going to have some polls, and let's get started with one now. So let's go ahead and launch that. And if you'll take a moment to answer the question that will be coming up on your screen shortly. All right, are you currently using automation for managing threats or incident response? So you can say yes, always, sometimes, no, but maybe you're researching solutions, or no, not at all. And as we go throughout these polls today, guys, there are no wrong answers. We just kind of want to see where everyone is in terms of their incident response. So thank you for participating. I think let's go ahead and close this poll out and we'll share those results. Okay, well, so all of the answers are represented here. So obviously we have a big variety of attendees here today, which is fantastic. But most of our folks are saying sometimes. What do you think of that, Peter? Is that about what you expected to see here, or is that surprising?
No, I don't think it's surprising at all. If you'd asked me 5, 6 years ago, I would say you'd probably see it trend more toward the not at all or researching. But there are a lot of solutions that are popping up on the market now. And I think people are trying to make sense of it all and see what works for them.
What about you, Grant? Anything to add there?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Peter on that. That a couple of years ago, you'd probably see those numbers reversed. But now with platforms being more readily available, I think this makes sense.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. And then we are going to turn it over now to Peter, who's going to review the current trends that are complicating incident response for organizations today. Peter, it's all yours.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate it. I don't think it's going to come as any surprise to the folks that are on this webinar that responding to incidents that threaten employee safety and business continuity is just more complicated than it's ever been. It is important to understand why it's become more difficult. So let's talk about a few reasons. Whether it's things like climate change, gun violence, a global pandemic, or just any kind of ongoing or concurrent wars that are happening, threats are increasing in scale. There's just also more people on the planet, and more of them are living in areas impacted by emergencies. Just think of Houston, which was recently impacted by Hurricane Beryl. There were only about 1 million people in Houston in 1970, but today there are almost 7 million. That's a huge difference, and it means that more people will be impacted by anything that happens there. And that goes for a lot of places around the world. Just generally speaking, organizations are facing threats that are just bigger in size, intensity, frequency, and cost. And it's not just in the US, it's also around the world. So bigger threats mean bigger impacts to your people in business. I actually had a guest on the Employee Safety Podcast recently who referred to today's threat landscape as being in a state of permacrisis. And I really love that term because it very succinctly captures what organizations around the world are experiencing, which is one crisis after another. And often they're actually occurring at the same time. So here's an example. Many of you likely had employees, operations, or perhaps just partners that were impacted by Hurricane Laura. It struck Louisiana as a Category 4 hurricane back on, I think it was October 27th of 2020, and it resulted in really massive impacts to people, property, and infrastructure. But what's worse is that immediately after the storm passed, many parts of the state experienced an extreme heat advisory that lasted for days. And that's miserable after a hurricane when power is out. And then all this, of course, was while the world was experiencing COVID-19 and that pandemic. So that's just one example, but it shows that organizations can never really let their guard down when it comes to preparedness, mitigation, and response. You just don't have time to stop and catch your breath anymore. Now, the cascade effect is another growing trend that's impacting incident response. And this effect, also called by other terms such as things like cascading events, cascading impacts, or the domino effect, is basically just a chain of events that occur as a direct or even an indirect result of a primary event. So think of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse earlier this year as a really good example of that. The initial incident occurred on March 26th of 2024, and that was in Baltimore, Maryland. A cargo vessel struck a critical support for the bridge, causing it to substantially collapse upon impact. So the primary incident was the collision and collapse, but the overall event has had cascading impacts, some of which are still ongoing. And that's things like, first and foremost, 6 people lost their lives. There were multi-state commuter disruptions. Maritime traffic was also very heavily disrupted. The supply chain was negatively impacted. A massive cleanup process began. A criminal investigation was launched. And then there were many disruptions to lots of different local services and businesses in the area. Now, organizations are also experiencing an additional layer of complexity due to today's increasingly dispersed workforce. That's something else we have to contend with that we didn't as little as 5 years ago. So for organizations with remote or hybrid workforces, you must consider how to protect them at their home offices or wherever they choose to work on any given workday. Again, not really a thing you had to contend with about 5 years ago, but it is very much a thing you have to contend with now. When lone workers are out in the field or they're moving from job site to job site, keeping them informed and safe is just more complicated if an incident occurs than for folks who are back at a corporate location. Business travel, also back to pre-pandemic levels, I think even exceeding it. And that means that protecting your workers from departure to return. So really just remember that your duty of care extends to all workers, regardless of where they're working, which makes incident response that much more complicated for folks like us. Now, another unfortunate trend that we see is that employees don't feel prepared for rising threats. According to the AlertMedia 2024 State of Employee Safety Report, 2/3 of employees believe that there are more workplace threats than ever before, yet many of them still feel unprepared to face any kind of future crisis that might occur. The survey also found that over 1/3 of employees feel unprepared to navigate workplace emergencies. And then perhaps adding to this feeling, nearly half of employees said they don't trust that their employer would notify them if an emergency were to occur that impacted them directly. So these perceptions that we found when we did this study and the lack of preparedness put your incident response at risk. That's really what it's all about. Employees who don't feel prepared or in the loop simply can't respond to emergencies quickly and effectively, which compromises safety and resilience. Now, employees aren't the only group who feel unprepared. Many safety and security leaders do as well. And honestly, how could they not with so much on their plates? When you're constantly being asked to do more with less, it's just difficult to feel 100% prepared for any incident that comes your way. And here's some data to support that. Around half of leaders say that they're challenged by things like budget constraints, complying with increasing regulations, and how to keep their employees properly informed and trained. Then there's things like information overload. The Cloud Security Alliance report that was released not too long ago found that more than a third of leaders actually struggle to prioritize necessary improvements to the security programs due to the overwhelming and oftentimes incorrect information that they receive. All of this is just a lot to take in, but the best way to keep your eye on the big picture of organizational safety and security is just to be aware. Knowledge is absolutely power. Grant and I were talking about this right before the webinar started. Knowledge is just so critical, especially when things are crazy and there's an emergency going on. So with that, I'm just going to take a pause. I've got a few more things to cover with you, but I'll turn it back to Katie real quick.
Thanks, Peter. I'm going to pause now for our next poll. So we're going to launch that here in a moment. This time we're just asking a little bit more about the threats Peter just talked about. So which trend are you most concerned about impacting your incident response? Is it those threats that are increasing in scale, the concurrent threats, kind of all these threats happening at once, cascading threats where there's kind of one primary event and then secondary events that could last, gosh, indefinitely, dispersed workforces, or that unprepared leadership and employees sort of feeling that we're experiencing right now? So I'm going to give that just a couple more seconds. I see we still have a few responses coming in. And I'm going to now go ahead and share those results with you guys. Okay. Well, we have a winner. 46% of our folks on the call today say that the unprepared leadership and employees is currently the biggest concern. So I'm going to start with you, Grant, this time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're gonna talk about planning later, but I could definitely see how that would be a concern. If you're not ready, it's hard to react to any issue that presents itself. So I can see that. Yeah.
Peter, anything to add?
This one is frustrating for people that are in safety and security and continuity, because we know how important it is to be prepared, but it's super hard to get people to take it seriously until something happens. And then their attention span is short. They're like, why didn't you prepare me for that? Okay, well, I've been trying to get you prepared. And then you prepare them, and then it kind of drifts off again. So it's a constant struggle. It's very nuanced.
Yep, that's a great point. Okay, guys, thanks for participating in that. We're going to go back to Peter now.
All right, well, let's go ahead and shift gears just a little bit and talk about the challenges of managing today's global threats. You can only act to protect your organization once you have complete verified information to calibrate your incident response. Really, really critical. And the truth is, reliable threat intelligence is becoming increasingly harder to find. So some organizations rely on open source intelligence, commonly called OSINT, for their information. And OSINT can be really helpful when you want to see the big picture of what's going on in the world. But sometimes OSINT feeds can feel like basically drinking from a fire hose. It's just a lot. While these intelligence sources out there offer a huge wealth of data, they also require really significant manpower and resources to sift through volumes of irrelevant information and lots of unverified claims to just find those valuable nuggets of intelligence that's relevant for your particular organization. Typically, security and safety professionals don't have the time or capacity to manually evaluate and vet thousands of alerts that are spanning around the globe. And even a dedicated global security team may struggle to keep up with the constant flow of data while assessing impact and then responding to the active threats. It's just a lot to do. Another concern is having the team create consistent output. Each analyst is going to synthesize and report things slightly differently, and very differently when you consider the work product of a highly experienced analyst versus someone who's very early in their career. And this inconsistency can make it difficult for the rest of the organization to digest what they're receiving. definitely a problem you gotta look out for. And then lastly here, the noise from the fire hose is not only distracting, it's also risky because an internal team filtering through OSINT feeds can still miss something important. Or perhaps worse, they might act on a false alarm, which wastes a ton of time and a lot of credibility. Just one slip up can cause your employees, your partners, and customers to lose confidence in your ability to navigate an emergency. And next, you'll see that generative artificial intelligence has really exploded in popularity and accessibility over the last few years, making the creation and the spread of disinformation significantly easier and far less expensive than it ever was. In just a few minutes or even less, anyone can now create very realistic audio, images, text, and even videos, which is crazy if you've seen some of these videos out there.
Yeah.
That can be used to mislead, spark controversy, or fuel distrust on a global scale. And generative AI is only going to continue to advance, kind of in the same way that your organization must stay really situationally aware of physical threats. It'll become increasingly important to remain very alert of and skeptical of what you see online, and then constantly reassess the sources that you trust for your risk intelligence. Now, relying solely on OSINT data or AI-filtered risk intelligence platforms, not necessarily a bad thing, but the information is way more relevant when you're viewing threats in the context of your particular business. And that's not quick or easy to achieve. Morally, we care about everything going on in the world, but practically speaking, you got to focus on the things that are relevant to where you have people that you're responsible for, where you have assets that you got to keep an eye on. If you have to manually identify who or what will be impacted by a threat, it can take a lot of time and attention and resources away from your incident response, especially if you have multiple facilities and employees that are spread all around the globe. Relevant and actionable intel is really the key to efficient incident response. No threat ever exists entirely in a vacuum. There's always context around it. You got to understand the bigger picture and all the different consequences that flow from it. You don't want your attention to be divided between manually monitoring threats and then carefully crafting your response. So let's look at some real-world examples of some of these challenges. Back in May of 2023, a falsified image suggested that an explosion occurred at the Pentagon. I don't know if you guys remember that. I do remember that very well. And it was circulated really widely across social media. One verified Twitter account incorrectly associated the image with Bloomberg News, and then various media outlets started to spread that false claim. As a result, not good. The stock market actually dipped modestly, amazing from just one post like that. And then other investments, including gold prices, actually shifted all before the Arlington County Fire Department knocked down the claim. So this kind of misinformation about emergency events can lead to wasted resources and even adverse economic effects, particularly when it spreads so quickly. And as AI tech improves, false images, as I mentioned before, will become more challenging to recognize. There'll just be a lot more of them. In February of this year, Pakistan's former Prime Minister, Imran Khan, actually created videos of speeches with artificial intelligence that mimicked his voice to continue rallying supporters while he was in jail. And then his party used the artificial voice to declare victory for closely aligned political candidates, just creating all sorts of confusion. So already AI content has gained a lot of traction and influence in elections around the globe. And this year is the biggest election year on the planet that we've ever had. And experts in AI development worry it's just going to continue to undermine public trust and belief in what we see and hear. So that's enough of the scary stuff for right now. I don't want to go too much further down that. Let's talk about something that's a bit more uplifting. And that's how you can manage today's global threats with relevant and verified information. And one way you can do that is with human vetted detection. So human vetted intel is threat data that's already been verified by human analysts directly, in contrast to data that automatically drops into an OSINT feed that's filtered by AI. The best threat analysts out there are experts in surfacing, vetting, and then communicating about global threats so they can provide fast and actionable information that's actually relevant to your business. And they're 100% focused on this process, and they aren't also tasked with response activities, which would basically interrupt their ability to monitor for new information. Those are very distinct things that you have to do, and it's hard for one person to do both. So successful intel analyst teams include people with experience in global security operations centers, or GSOCs, law enforcement, military intelligence, government intelligence agencies, and news organizations. They've all just been mired in this world and they understand what it's like to source information quickly and share it. So whether you engage these experts directly, like in your own internal GSOC, maybe hiring them, or if you choose to partner with them through an outside vendor, human analysts can significantly increase the accuracy and even speed of your risk assessments. And when you entrust dedicated experts with the time-consuming task of surfacing and then assessing those threats, you really lower the potential for information fatigue, misinformation, and false alarms. Here are just a few high-level ways human analysts can actually contribute to actionable risk intel. So first, human analysts can use OSINT and other live data feeds to detect threats that around your business ecosystem as quickly as possible, and then continue to provide timely updates as the situation unfolds so you don't have to do it manually. Always remember that it's not just one and done. Something happens, and then more things happen around it, and you got to stay on top of it. So while you're actually trying to respond, then you're trying to collect new information about it, it can get really out of control. If you got someone just staying on top of it and feeding you that intel in a drip, drip, drip format, it can make your response so much easier. Next is relevance. Human analysts can identify which threats are relevant to your business and then limit notifications to what actually matters. I'll say it again because I think it's so true, but morally, we care about everything bad happening in the world, but practically, you got to just focus your limited time on things that impact your people and assets. Another way is through accuracy. Humans can verify that a threat is legitimate by checking multiple trusted sources and then screening for signs of information and AI generation. This, what I call triangulation of the truth, is just more important than ever, especially based on everything I talked about before. And then lastly, they can provide really valuable context. So humans can summarize critical points of any incoming intelligence and then provide additional details, additional information to help you understand the full impact of a threat on your particular business. If you have to sit there and sift through a bunch of very contextless tweets and posts and then apply context to them, you're already 2 steps behind. So let's drill down on this just a little bit more. If your priority is making the best use of a robust security team, your first instinct actually might be to rely on a technology solution that offers the most intelligence with minimal filtering. However, threat intel platforms that offer OSINT data that's filtered only by AI come with a lot of the same obstacles as the actual raw data feeds that they're built on, which you would never try to tap into because it's just way too much. Even with these AI filters, you're still receiving a lot of noise that's very time-consuming to get through and costly to narrow down. As you can see here, FCC North America, the auto parts manufacturer and supplier, actually testified to this. Their organization realized just unprecedented safety and visibility and efficiency by utilizing a technology solution with human-vetted threat intel. Cutting down on the amount of stuff they got actually made them faster in their response. And fortunately, speed doesn't need to come at the cost of accuracy. While AI-driven OSINT tools often deliver early signals immediately as they arise, human-vetted intel provides accurate information as quickly as possible with the very important added context of impact on your employees and business. Any additional time that it's going to take external human analysts to verify information, and it will, is actually time that you save by not having to contextualize the data or do further investigation on your own. So that way your team, as I talked about earlier, can focus entirely on the minute-to-minute response that actually protects your operations and your people and not be mired in the data analysis and the data collection. It's always very valuable to collect data, but it's kind of low value compared to the response that your team can execute upon. And here you see JetBlue's Director of Business Continuity and Emergency Response can absolutely and did vouch for this. So Penny Nefaris actually feels like she's now a few steps ahead by utilizing human-vetted threat intel instead of just trying to sift through those big data feeds. And that's a huge win for the BC and EM teams. All right. You heard enough of me talking. Let's get to the star of the show here. I'll turn it over to Grant, who's going to educate us on how to use automation to accelerate and improve incident response. So Grant, thank you again for offering to share your expertise with us today. Really, really appreciate it. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Now you guys will see Peter is a very hard act to follow. Thank you for all that great information. So the foundational elements of an effective incident response, you guys can all see these are some of the things that Peter hit on real quickly. Planning, we practice like we play. Detection, what do we do with the information that we get? when we assess it, what are we going to do with it? How do we communicate it out? How do we adapt to this emerging threat? And then what's the resolution? There's a lot of things that we got to run through this iteration while making these really critical decisions as this information comes in. So when we look at automated threat detection, the automated threat alerts ensure you have accurate information from trusted sources to inform your efforts so you can act immediately. So what this basically looks like, and I'll give some examples of it a little bit later on, but this is human verified information from trusted sources that you as an organization can use to make sure that your employees, your assets are safe. If a critical incident pops up, you immediately know where it is, who's involved, who's there, who you need to communicate with, and having that speed and ability to react that fast is critical. Automated impact assessments. Now, we'd all would like to have a team of 20 people to go out and do impact assessments for every type of upcoming event. So automatic impact assessments look like things like upcoming hurricanes, wildfires that can impact your business. I know at BP, when I worked there for several years, there was a large wildfire in the Texas Panhandle. These automated alerts or impact assessments from AlertMedia allowed us to quickly ascertain, impact of these wildfires. Where were they moving? What assets did we have in the area? Vendors, what's the community impact? What are the things that we had to do to make sure that we prepared? So, I always tell people say, what do you need to be successful? And I always try to tell them that if I could see down the road and around the corner a little bit, that would make me much better at what I do. These automated impact assessments are things that help you see down the road and around the corner.
Mm-hmm. And what about the map? Can you talk about that, Grant, a little bit? Like, how does that impact like your remote or your hybrid workforce, like knowing where they are?
Sure. No, the automatic impact assessments and being able to look at the map like this, working from home before COVID was kind of a neat thing. Post COVID, you always heard people say, we went from 8 offices to 800, and now we had to look at employee safety through a much different lens. So having the opportunity to take this map and look at now, where's our workforce? Instead of all being maybe in Manhattan, now half of them are scattered across the nation, and that just gives us a better view and a better opportunity to react more quickly and make sure our employees are safe. That was one of the things that was mentioned, I think, in the poll. That maybe the leaders aren't really ready to respond. And I would say this is probably one of those reasons. The workforce is now dispersed. We're dealing with all these different incidents. It's not just at your corporate office. Now there's 800 corporate offices. So a lot to digest there, but having a map like this to see, where and when we have to make decisions and how we want to respond and communicate is critical.
Absolutely. And Peter, you had a story about this, right? You got an automated impact assessment. Is that correct?
Oh,
You want to tell that story?
Yeah, if you're just talking about using our product in particular, but the idea of automation is huge because think about it. When an emergency happens, the faster you can communicate that to someone, the faster they can get ahead of it and therefore probably have a better outcome. So I think the story we were talking about before we started here was I got an alert one time. I was driving home from work and my wife said, "Hey, can you please stop at the store to pick up a few things?" So I'm passing by the store on the way home. And right before I'm about to turn right into the parking lot, I get an alert from the system telling me that there's an unstable person with a knife wielding it, threatening people outside the store. And I'm like, that's interesting. Wait a minute. I'm about to turn into that parking lot right now. So I just kept on driving. And that's just one example, but that's the idea. If you can get information to people faster, they may not ever find themselves in a bad situation and you've avoided it completely. And ultimately, that's what we always want to do. It's great to look like the hero at the end that hey, something really bad happened, people were impacted, you saved the day. But what if you could just nudge them a little bit and keep them out of the problem altogether? And then nobody knew about it other than that one person that you saved up front. I think that's actually better.
Very good. Sorry, Grant, just wanted to get some context in there from Peter. Tried to put you on the spot.
No, that's super important. And I think one of the challenges that the security directors face is that, we're kind of expected to know about everything and have an answer for everything, and this is just one of those ways by using the AlertMedia platform and having this human vetted, verified source type of information makes our job that much easier, but also helps us be more informed and be a good partner within the business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So automated communication through critical events. So, having information on something that happened. So if you guys remember the shooting at the supermarket in Buffalo, or the supermarket shooting at King Soopers in Boulder, Colorado, this type of critical event notification process that AlertMedia uses to notify impacted stakeholders is incredible, because just imagine this event kicks off. You're a security director. You have all these different locations now that you're responsible for, and you pull up the event. You see what's happened. You see that you have 4 or 5 employees that live within proximity of this place. You can immediately notify them to say, hey, listen, just want to let you know this is what's going on in your area. We recommend to stay away from here. It really all of a sudden just ups your game. Obviously makes the employees feel much better knowing that they have a security director, security team, or a SOC, whatever it is, that's really looking out for them, not only while at work, but also while at home. This kind of stuff also happens. I've had several employees be on vacation. I don't know if you remember the Las Vegas shooting. We had several people there, and we got alerts, and we were able to call them right away and go, hey, listen, this is what's going on. Are you okay? And so they were very, very grateful for that. But having a system that has human vetted, verified information that runs 24/7, being able to feed you, information that's going on everywhere now with the dispersed workforce, is really reassuring for me as a security director, that I'm going to get the information I need in a timely manner and be able to communicate that out to our team members.
Excellent. And we actually have a question here. I'm going to hold most of them to the end, but this is relevant to this particular slide. So we're seeing a mobile screen right now. Is this actually what it looks like? Can you do all the same things with like AlertMedia on a mobile app that you can on a desktop?
Oh,
maybe
absolutely.
Peter,
So,
do you want to? Okay. Yeah,
oh,
either one.
I'll just say yes.
No,
I'll
I
leave
was
it to
just
Graham
going
to
to say,
go. Yeah.
yeah, no, we've, you guys, we're talking on a desktop, and most of the stuff we look at when it's presented is on a desktop. The mobile app and the mobile use for AlertMedia is just as easy, just as informative, works really, really well. We had to use it. We're all mobile during Hurricane Harvey. So it worked very, very well. So the mobile app is just as effective, as easy to use as the desktop version.
Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate it.
Sure. Automation in action. So this is one of my kind of favorite workflows, because I'm a workflow kind of person. But when we look at automated threats and how it kind of processes through everything, we at AlertMedia, you have a whole team that's monitoring. So they sit there 24/7, 365 days out of the year. They look at this information. They identify potential threats, right? So the AI, the computer generated, then the humans look at it, or human verified. They vet this information. They confirm that this is real. They put context around it, which is one of the most important things that as a security director or a safety director, business continuity, is when you get an alert, understanding the context around that alert. How does this impact my business? And how am I going to communicate this out to my employees? How will they take this information? And one of the great things that AlertMedia does is they put it in verbiage and language that's easily understood. It's not in your military, law enforcement jargon. It comes with great context, and it's very applicable. So you get this information, and then you're able to push it out. And then throughout critical events, you're able to continually update with impactful and actionable information. So really love this flow chart. Okay, as I promised before, using automation to maybe improve your executive protection, I wanted to give a couple of examples here on how I've used it in the past and how impactful it's been. We did EP for a high net worth family from the US. This family started a dating website there were significant threats to this family's to this family, to this person, to their kids. And when they traveled overseas, I was assigned actually to the kids. We traveled throughout the UK, spent well over 30 days there. And during that time, when we were with the family, we got alerts from AlertMedia that climate protesters had shut down some roads. And they had shut down a museum that we were actually traversing to with the kids. And so we were able to take this information and obviously reroute, kind of reschedule our events. But just imagine, as I was thinking about this type of information, it may not seem like that big of a deal, but when you think about someone's kids and being able to communicate back to the parents, hey, listen, yes, this event's going on, we know about it. One to let you know your son, daughter, they're safe, they're with us, we rescheduled. That just made that high net worth individual just feel so much better that we were in tune with what was going on. We were consistently getting good verified information, and we were able to communicate back to them on what was going on. And they were able to see that on the news, that it was what we were talking about, but that everybody was safe. So really made them feel very, very good. Second example is a little bit different. I wasn't with this client. I was at, some clients are different. Sometimes they want you with them and sometimes they don't. This client was in Paris during the protests when they changed the retirement age, and there was a lot of real big issues and protests. And I was able to update our client as he was moving from business meeting to business meeting on the location of the protest, potential planned protests, and if that would impact his days while he was there. So very, whether you're with the protectee or working remotely, using this type of automated information really had an impact, not only from helping build trust with your client, but then also using actionable information that maybe just made their day work better, more efficient. They didn't miss meetings. They were able to do the things they needed to do. And when they were done with their business trip, go ahead and get out of the city uninterrupted. So really, really positive, good information that was very actionable.
And Grant, that kind of speaks to what I said earlier. Your job as the safety and security professional is not to come in and save the day. It's to stop the day from ever going bad in the first place, if you can. And those are two great examples of that.
Yeah, no, yeah. And executive protection isn't always gates, guards, and guns, right? There's a lot more there, and making somebody's day just go smoothly is definitely a part of it. So another quick example on using automation to streamline travel risk management. Most recently, I had a trip over to the Middle East. This was during the Gaza conflict, and I took a group of 60 high net worth individuals. We spent about 2 weeks over in Egypt, and by being able to use the products that AlertMedia had, the country white papers, I was able to send out country briefings prior to the trip. And then during the trip, when the conflict was going on, and then when the U.S. strikes started with the Yemen forces there in the Gulf of Aden, I was able to get real-time updates and be able to communicate in a manner, again, kind of with context around these alerts, to allay any type of fears of those people who were on the trips. Like, hey, listen, this strike happened. It was the Gulf of Aden. It was X amount of kilometers from here. We don't have anything to worry about. This is the reason behind it. And then when they, again, see it on the news, it's confirmed the information that we got prior to the news reporting onto it. Just really kind of builds that trust with them. So having AlertMedia in that type of information kind of in your back pocket to be able to communicate clearly in a way that the people that you're with, that you're protecting, whether it's employees, high net worth people, or donors or whatever, it's just really comforting to them to have a platform that has human verified, actionable, confirmed information. So it was really, really a great add to the trip. So it was really, really great. So one of the questions I get a lot is and I think this was also brought up in one of the questions, when we want to invest in a platform like this, how do we approach the C-suite with questions and answers around ROI, return on investment? And so there's a quick little slide here. I don't have to go through all of it, but when if you're a smaller security team, and let's say you're a team of one, and I know when I was starting security teams, I always wanted to have an intel analyst. That was always the last person that I got. So if you look at it from the perspective that you're a team of one, maybe you have a global organization, maybe just spread out through the US, being able to employ a platform that has 24/7, 365 days a year of monitoring that's human vetted, being able to work with a platform like that, plug in your organization and the information that's important to your organization, be able to monitor that around the clock and be able to communicate continuously with automated updates, whether it's impact assessments, where it's critical updates on events that are going on in neighborhoods. That type of dollar amount, you really can't put a figure on, but it helps security teams communicate the need and how it's going to support the business. I know at BP, we used AlertMedia for after hours lone worker program. And just by using AlertMedia to monitor our lone worker program after hours, we were able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars in manpower. During COVID, when I was at Magnolia, we had 13 different locations, 800 employees. Everyone arrived to work anywhere from 3 a.m. to the evening shift, and we had to write the COVID questionnaire. I'm sure we all remember the COVID questionnaire every day before you came into work. We put that on the AlertMedia platform and the survey platform, and we sent that out every day, automated at different times throughout the day. And the fact that we were able to send that out at to 13 different locations, basically, let's say 13 different times a day, we saved at least an hour at each one of those locations from someone having to stand there, give a piece of paper, someone fill that out, someone take a temperature. So if you look at it from that standpoint, 13 locations, 13 hours a day, 365 days a year, the amount of money that you save just by employing this automated platform to improve your business is great. So those are real numbers that people are able to look at, see, touch, and feel. I'm sure there's a lot of others out there, but those are just a few that I wanted to share with you guys. Yep. So holistic risk reduction with AlertMedia. Really, so all the things that we've talked about up to this point, the intuitive platform, how efficient the information that we're getting, and that allows us to respond quickly and reliably. And really, I talk about security, we talk about safety a lot, but AlertMedia is very, very cross-functional, right? It actually, so if you're an IT professional, if you're in facilities, safety, security, there's all sorts of different uses for this platform. And if I sound super excited about AlertMedia, I always tell people I'm a little bit biased. I've been an AlertMedia user since 2016. I've used AlertMedia in very, very high stress situations, in real threat to life type scenarios. And all of these things that we've talked about, the intuitiveness, the efficiency, how fast we're able to communicate, and most importantly, the reliability to have a platform that took good information with good context and we're able to deliver it out to our employees, really had a significant impact to our company several times. And this is why several companies around the world use AlertMedia, and I'm a huge fan. So I've seen it work in real life. I would love to answer any questions that we might have. So I'm going to pass this back to you.
Thank you so much, Grant. I feel like I just got an entire masterclass in about 30 minutes. That was great. Those examples just really bring it all to life. So I do want to make sure, though, that we have plenty of time for questions. And then I also have a couple of additional resources to offer you all if you want to dive a little deeper. But first, I'm going to launch this last poll. This one's going to be really quick. Let us know if you'd like to learn more about how AlertMedia can help you accelerate incident response, which will better protect your people and your business. You can say yes, and we'll get you the information that you need. You can also say no, not at this time, and no hard feelings. You know where to find us if you're ever interested. So I'm going to give that just another couple seconds. Then I'm going to go ahead and end this now and move on to our questions. All right. All right, Grant, I'm going to start with you. Did any of the folks in Egypt give you any feedback when you were able to divert them in danger? Did you get any direct feedback from your folks?
Oh, the feedback I got was they were really grateful for the white papers, which helped them understand kind of the whole geopolitical what they were kind of walking into. We were in Egypt, how one conflict or another conflict, how it affected or didn't affect what we were doing. So having the ability to give them that information so they understood that the region, the impacts and all that kind of stuff. I think we didn't ever have to divert from anything that was unsafe or a threat. But the fact that we were in proximity, the information that we were able to provide them actually, I got more feedback on, hey, that was really comforting. Thank you for helping me understand. This is really timely information, and it was the correct information. So they were just really grateful that someone was watching in the background and delivering information in a timely manner. And that just made them kind of breathe a little bit easier and enjoy the trip.
Oh, right. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to stick with you, Grant, for another second. What do organizations tend to, get wrong when it comes to automating certain systems or processes? Is there something you've encountered more so than others?
I know we talked about having the human part of the process is always still really, really important. I mean, trying to automate things is critical. It's important to use those things where you can, but having that one extra, added human verification piece in that, I think, is what people kind of miss out on. We always want to be quicker, faster. We want to save money, but when you build out these processes, it can spit out an answer sometimes that needs context around it and how it applies to our life, to the company's life, to the employees that you're working with. So I think sometimes we just forget that human aspect, which then is the context on the information that automation has spit out, and how that applies here, because it can be misunderstood. It can be reacted to, wrongly. But when you put some context around it and how it fits, I think that's where the missing piece is a lot of times.
That makes sense. All right, I'm going to switch to you now, Peter, for a couple questions here. We have several questions coming in about duty of care. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And a specific question we have, are we required to notify employees working from home or traveling locally? Is there a law requiring that, or is it just kind of a nice thing to do? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so you asked, is there a law? So the first thing I have to say is I'm not an attorney. Consult your attorneys. But I do have a lot of experience in this space. I mean, years ago, when I first started working, the concept of duty of care was really limited to what happened within an organizational facility. And that was kind of it. It was what Grant said before, the old guns, gates, and guards. And that was it. So since then, duty of care has really expanded a lot further beyond that. It's just ensuring your people are safe anywhere in the world, no matter where they live, work, or travel. It's not simple. It's simple to do, but it's far easier to keep tabs on things and prevent issues from arising in controlled environments than in places where you have no control at all. And the faster you can become aware of bad things that happen wherever your people might be, the faster you can communicate with them and keep them safe and productive. Now, legally, do you have to do this outside your facilities? Like, do you have a responsibility to take care of someone in their own home? I would say morally, increasingly, yes. And I'll talk why about that in a second. Legally, not so much, but that's changing. There's one very large global consulting company that told me they had one of their employees who was working from home on a call like this, like a Zoom call or something, had a heart attack and died. Right. I mean, while he was working from home. So since he was working for the organization, they then were able to file for, special insurance to cover that because it was considered, something that happened to someone while they were working, even though they were at home. So this is where the legal lines are starting to cross. So increasingly, it's going to become a legal responsibility. Now it's more of a moral one. If you're not protecting your people, man, it's so easy for people to get up and walk and go somewhere else if they don't feel like they're safe at your organization. And that's like one of the number one things we hear in that employee safety report every year. I don't think that my employer regards my safety as highly as I do. So make people feel like they're safe no matter where they live, work, or travel, and you'll get people not leaving your company and staying.
Such a good point. Anything to add to that, Grant? Sorry, I saw
You
your
know,
little
I
light on
agree from the legal and the moral aspect. You know, I think most security, safety, business continuity people, you know, they tend towards the moral part. Like, I want to do the right thing and make sure everyone is taken care of. And I would refer back to actually something that Peter just said, is that, you know, in some of these polls and some of the things we've seen in the employee safety report, that is one of the biggest things is, you know, my employer is either isn't ready, or they don't care, or I don't feel taken care of. And this is just one of those ways that, you know, as an employer, if you're offering them to work home, we can say, hey, as an added layer of safety, these are the things that we're going to do to help you be aware of what's going on around you, just to keep you more safe.
Excellent. Peter, I'm going to stick with you here because this is about the story that you told. The example you gave about the grocery store and the knife situation. Was the information about any given, is the information about any given threat entered into AlertMedia by an individual that has the app? Or is it linked to local law enforcement in some capacity? Was it entered by an employee of the store? How can you talk about how that threat actually gets from the threat analyst to the end user, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's bad stuff happening all around the world constantly, and it's on a massive scale. There's just different things, from protests to violent crime to weather incidents. And essentially what we're looking for, our team at AlertMedia, those Intel analysts, are using AI tools to scour that open source intelligence. So we're looking at things like social media reports, police scanners, the dark web, you name it. So they're basically using these AI tools to pull that stuff down. And it's still a lot of information. Let's say in that example, I don't know exactly how it unfolded, but we probably saw some social media reports and then heard that police were responding through the scanner. So now we've triangulated that. We know something's going on. Our analyst then puts that context together, very quickly summarizes it, sends it out into the product. And then in our product, you can set up subscription alerts. If someone finds themselves near a particular location where they work, live, or travel, it can automatically, if you want, deliver the information directly to them. And that's what happened in my case. I actually got a text message and a mobile app push because I set the profile up to give me the message on both those channels in case I wasn't paying attention to one or the other. And I just happened to be sitting at that red light and I saw the text pop up. Wasn't using my hands. It was right there on my dashboard, but I saw the text pop up and I just quickly read it while the light was red. And then I just kept on going. So that's kind of the basic flow of how that works.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have time for one more question. Grant, I'm going to go back to you. A couple people have asked this, so I'm going to try to condense this into one question. A lot of the examples that you gave today required reaching employees on their cell phones. What if our employees are hesitant to give out their personal contact information? What do you say to them, or how do you sort of combat that?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's a great question. You know, typically, you know, you want to establish when you roll out something like this within your organization, you know, what's the company requiring, you know, as far as what the employee has to provide when they register. When employees talked about personal cell phones, all that kind of stuff, I just usually had a couple conversations with them, and if they felt uncomfortable with it, it wasn't one of those things that I forced them to do it. I know, you know, because hopefully, whether it's through email, work phone, you know, some other, you know, maybe they're with other people within the organization, company who are getting the alerts, that they eventually see the power and the positive use of this platform. And a lot of times with those people that I had conversations with that didn't want to give me their personal cell phone, after an event happened, they usually would call me back and go, "Hey, I've reconsidered. I want to give you my cell phone. We'll go ahead and put that in there." And usually they have follow-on questions like, "Hey, will you help me if I'm on vacation too?" And all that kind of stuff. So it really just, grows into this great question. But I always tell people, if they don't want to give it to me, their personal cell phone, it's not a hill I die on. I figure out a different way to make sure they're communicated with. And unfortunately, sometimes incidents happen and then they come back to you and they go, "Hey, I see the value in it. Here's the number." So I don't know if that's a great answer. I run into it. And that's just how I've dealt with it in the past.
Peter, I saw you nodding. Anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to handle people differently. I'd say probably 60 to 70% of the time, you're not going to have much pushback, but you'll have that roughly 40 to 30% of folks that push back for whatever reason. The best way you can do it is to do what Grant said, is to socialize like anecdotal stories of how it's been helpful, and then reassure people that this is not the company in HR tracking you. In fact, we're not even tracking you. It's security and safety. And our responsibility is just to make sure you're safe. And all we are asking for is your personal cell phone number to send you a text message if we need to warn you about something that might be bad, to kind of just nudge you out of the way of it. That way you don't step into it. That's really the idea. And if you communicate that openly and share it, back it up with some anecdotes, then people tend to, they let their guard down. They're like, "Okay, that makes sense. I'll do that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Well, oh, did you have one more thing to add, Grant?
No, I was just going to say, just to reiterate what Peter was saying, our goal is always just to make sure that you're okay. And, we'll figure out a way to make sure that you get that message. And usually once that's communicated with them, they're usually pretty good about it. But there are a few, like Peter said, 30 to 40% that need a little extra, time to consider it. So, but yeah.
And like you said, I bet you if their colleague gets the message and they were warned, they're like, "Why didn't I get that message?
Yes.
I had no idea." Right.
That's
so,
right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, guys. That's all the time we have for questions, but I do have those additional resources I promised. So if anyone on the call today wants to do a deeper dive into today's topics, I highly recommend downloading these two ebooks. One is on the business case for human vetted intelligence, which has some of what we talked about today, but even more. And then our definitive guide to emergency communications. So you can find both of those at alertmedia.com in the resources section, and they are completely free. So highly encourage you taking advantage of those. And at this time, I just want to thank Grant and Peter for joining us today. I have their email addresses here on the slide. So if you didn't get your question answered today, or you just want to kind of continue the conversation or connect, you can reach out to both of them via email. So Grant, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time today. Your insights were just incredible.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always a joy to be with you guys.
Appreciate that. Peter, always a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone as well for joining. And Grant, thank you. I know you're always bouncing around the world doing stuff, so appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you guys.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for us. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. We really appreciate your participation and engagement. And we'd love to see you on a future Alert Media webinar. That's basically it. Thanks again. Take care and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.